Chad Dukes here with the nation's leading website, thefoogerton.com, and heard locally here on 106.7 WJFK in Washington, D.C. We're on with one of the greatest mixed martial arts fighters of all time. He is now an outstanding actor in Hollywood and one of my favorite guys. The natural Randy Couture joins us on the show. Randy, what's going on, man?
Not much, man. What are you up to?
Not just sitting here and excited to talk to you. First of all, I actually went out and I bought the Scorpion King movie, and I dug it a lot, man. There were some great special effects in there. How much fun was acting? How much of a change was that for you?
Oh, it was a blast. I had a great time. Cape Town was an amazing city. We were there for 6 weeks shooting the picture, and the costumes and the sets and the whole deal was just an amazing experience. I had a blast. Russell McKay was a terrific director, and I was always a big fan of The Highlander, and the latest installment of the Resident Evil series. He directed that, and so I had a lot of fun with him, and everybody else on set. The stunt crew in South Africa was a lot of fun. We did some fun things in the fight scenes, and the sword play and stuff was a blast.
Yeah, and Randy, some of these other fighters, like Roger Huerta just announced he's going to be an actor, and you got Kung Lee that's off filming all these movies. I'm just curious, how are you going to be able to manage both? Because you're back in the UFC, you're going to have big fights there, and then you're also, I assume, still pursuing acting. What's that balance going to be like?
Well, I've been acting for 5 years now, and obviously the door opened because of athletics, and I've been a fighter first and foremost. And I think at 45 I realized that I can't fight forever. So I would love to transition to more acting and more character roles and things like that. But I'm still fighting now, and so you juggle it. I've juggled several businesses and all that other stuff as well. So that's just part of life.
Randy, speaking of juggling, last time we saw you, you were trying to juggle a 270-pound man around inside the cage, and I really thought you were executing your game plan well. I thought you had that fight won. I even thought Lesnar was looking a little gassed. And then, as all happens to all great fighters, it's very easy to get caught, and that's what happened. I'm just curious, as now that you're reflecting on that fight, if you had another whack at Lesnar, I think you're probably pretty confident that you have a good shot at beating him still.
Yeah, I definitely, think that I was doing what I trained to do and felt like it was being effective. He wasn't overwhelming in any of the situations I found myself in, whether it had been on the bottom or up against the fence or anywhere we ended up. I just, he's long. I didn't anticipate that range. It was hard to establish that range when you're, capable of being hit and when you're not. And he caught me behind the ear, and with 4-ounce gloves, there's a very small margin of error. So,
yeah.
That's the way it goes sometimes. We'll see what happens in the future, how he settles and shakes out with Mir, and the division's still interesting. There's a lot of guys out there that I think are interesting fights, and that's what's most important to me. So we'll see what happens.
Absolutely, Randy. And I was just curious, who would you like to be your next fight? A lot of people have said Chuck Liddell. I've heard you don't have much interest in that. A lot of people have said Minotauro, but there's some issues there. Who's the next guy that you would like to fight?
Well, they've actually offered me the Nogueira fight, which, I've had a lot of respect for him over the years. Watched him fight one of my longtime friends on 2 occasions, Danny Henderson. So I'm very familiar with him. I think he's a tremendous fighter, and he's been in some amazing battles. I think he would be an interesting fight, and if that's who they want me to fight next, then we'll see when that happens. It potentially could happen, in the spring, June timeframe maybe.
Well, let's see that you come out on that fight. Let's say you come out on top. Who do you like coming out of the Brock Lesnar-Frank Mir fight? Because Mir's already beat him once, and I really didn't expect him to look as great as he did against Minotauro. Really, his stand-up was excellent. Who do you like in that matchup?
Well, it'll be interesting. How much has or will Lesnar have been able to learn? Will he be able to counter the submissions? I think Mir still always has that ability, kind of like that one punch or puncher's chance to find that submission position and end the night for Lesnar. It's still see that as his kind of Achilles heel. It's going to take him a while to get that piece of his game up to speed where he's not going to get caught out of position or overextended and submitted. But he's got a great wrestler's base. If he stays within himself and stays in position and effectively punches, he can be pretty overwhelming, as Mir saw the first time they fought. And I think if he'd have been a little more patient and picked his shots, he may have changed that outcome instead of throwing 30 hammer hands in 30 seconds. If he picks 1 or 2 or 3 big shots and lands them in those situations, he's going to be a lot more effective fighter. And he's a great big guy with big hands, so I don't think you want to take any real big shots. The hammer hands don't really hurt, but if you can't change the position, then obviously the referee still has to look at that. So it's still an interesting fight. Can Lesnar go out and establish that game, take him down, and get in a position where he can be overwhelming? Is Mir so confident now in his stand-up that he's going to try and stand up with Lesnar? I don't know if that's the right approach, but it'll be interesting to see how it comes out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love hearing Randy Couture saying hammer hands don't really hurt. That's a thrill. Hey, Randy, I was checking out your website, randycouture.tv, and there's some links on there. Saw an interview you did with bloodyelbow.com, or you were talking about some of these issues with fighters' unions and the amount that fighters get paid and the fact that it's not fair. And you guys you do need to have a group so you can be represented and get paid for all this hard work and the training you're doing. What steps do you think need to be taken to make sure that fighters are getting the money that they're due?
Well, it's about the marketplace, and everybody says, "Oh, you guys are killing boxing, and boxing is going away." And I'm like, well, last time I checked, I don't know anybody in mixed martial arts that's been paid $20, $30, $40 million for one fight.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much that holds water. And I see what a lot of other professional athletes in our country get paid, and it would be nice to see mixed martial artists appreciated in the same way for all that we do and the work that we put in, and basically putting our butts on the line on a regular basis. And mixed martial arts is a different industry than boxing. It's a whole different setup. The marketing is different. Everything is different. And I think right now, the control and all the things go to the promoters, like the UFC, who's obviously the most dominant brand in the sport. So until fighters want to unite and somebody's willing to kind of pave the way and in a lot of ways endure that initial backlash from promoters, I don't know that it's going to change. The UFC holds all the cards right now. There isn't anybody else in town, no place else for us to go if we can't get a fair shake from the UFC.